Orcs, I hope that I was able to answer your question, and if you need me to revisit it, let me know. I'll be happy to do so. Trader Joe's, no, 12 for 10 Kroger. What's happening is a bard and the two minotaurs are trying to heist a gathering. Okay. And they don't know that the adventurers are there. As long as the spell doesn't say something like the target must be able to hear you, and then it's up to the minotaurs, do you hear something if you're raging? So it sounds very circumstantial to the particulars of what is happening, orcs. Just read the feedback on the great sword magic item I'm working on. Gonna change up the damage dice. Yes, actually, XCat, someone beat me to it. Because of the dice that you were recommending, crits would be insane. Just remember that a weapon is something that's swung at least once, but probably 2 or 3 times on a turn, and doesn't run out of spell slots. Sounds like you had some good milk, bro player. Okay. Grum and mum. Oh, grumble and mumble. I like that, orcs. That is clever. Grumble and mumble. So what I wanted to talk about in juxtaposition to the Unearthed Arcana is a system that I had used. Actually, does that make that any better or bigger? Kind of. Is a system that I created for use at my own tabletop and that I actually employed over the course of several games in with my group of friends. And what I want to do is present this to you as another type of option for consideration. And even if you have other suggestions, I will also say that these are playtest rules. If there's something that is, heck, even something that we amended on the fly that I didn't go back into the document, but this document was last edited about a year ago. So we'll see. But I want to present this as an option to allow for perhaps a little bit more fun and variables to group combat while still keeping your PC relevant in a large group. Fates and Wills, which, by the way, I tried to write this similarly to Unearthed Arcana by using standardized language, by referring back to bold terms as meaning something. Oh, gotcha, bro player. Fates and Wills is designed to offer a streamlined system that allows characters from D&D 5e to take command of units of allies to battle hordes of enemies. It can be used for battles of attrition, capture and control scenarios, as well as with sieges. Your fate is your deck. A fate is one card in the deck. Tempt Fate indicates drawing the top card of the deck. Players each have one fate of 52 cards, which can include one or both jokers. The fates are numbered and carry different group terms. DMs combine 2 fates together. So you as a PC at my table will have one fate. I will have 2 fates that are kind of shuffled together. Red cards are any heart or diamond suited cards. Black cards are any club or spade. And this may seem obvious, but keep this in mind. If you're writing out directions for custom content, maybe you want to publish something, you shouldn't presume that people may know that inherently. because that way you're building a nice structure or a scaffolding that you can always refer back to should you need to. These colors may have additional effects depending on if they were pulled from a matching red or black unit. Note the Fate's color in conjunction with which unit it is affecting. And I'll have to... If it's not mentioned here, what that means by red or black units, if we have a unit that is... if you have a unit that is, whatever, like 50 Minotaurs, we're talking about Minotaurs, you can indicate that this unit is a black unit. This unit, I'm kind of actually reversing it, but this unit then of thieves is a red unit, because the color association of your unit will come into play. Because certain effects can be beneficial if they match your unit. Yes, so we're into my playtest version of Mass Combat, Torchic. We're still talking about Mass Combat, and if you want to talk about the Unearthed Arcana version, I still have it up. We can bring it up, and I'm fine about talking about that too. Hey, Mantarok, welcome. Note the Fate's color in conjunction with which unit it is affecting. Numerical cards are cards of any color numbered 2 through 10. They are worth their face value when resolving fate or will effects. Face cards are jacks worth 11, queens worth 12, and kings worth 13. Ace cards are just that and worth 14 points. Face, or as a collective term, face cards and aces, is a catch-all term for any non-numerical card, excluding jokers. Oh, how you keep track? Well, I put the link for the Unearthed Arcana. I put the link for the Unearthed Arcana on the channel, and I can repost it again if you need to, Bloody Torchic. For this, I haven't posted this in our Discord yet. So if I finish and you all are interested in tinkering with it, you would certainly, I would open it up to you if you'd want to play around with this. Odds per card type. And this is important as a reference, because if you want to create abilities or you want to play around, it's good to know the statistics. If you want to measure odds or power, you know, rarer cards would probably have a slightly higher power than a common card. For that reason, it's not going to come up as often, if at all, depending on the circumstances. So here's our odds per card type. Joker cards are optional. If drawn, they are set to the side, and another card is drawn to replace it. The Joker may be used any time after you draw a card to switch the suit of the card, whether it is your turn or not. When used, the Joker is then banished from the fate. Banishment means removing that fate from the game until the cycle ends. You can use them for or against yourself, your allies, or the DM that's going to be pushing units in your direction across the battlefield. Will terms. Your will references a set of special actions you can take either as a hero or a unit. Your will bends or breaks what is fated for you should you choose not to accept it. It may also lessen the impacts of what was meant to be, as some things cannot be helped. Each journey, or turn, because I base this on kind of telling an epic heroic journey, as per the hero's journey, you may assert your will twice over the course of the acts, or the turns, that are available to you. And I know your eyes could be rolling back and saying, oh my gosh, there's all these terms. If I really wanted to, I could definitely cut out the fluff. I wanted to try and present something that was fluff-based. You're on this heroic journey. You know, you have these cycles of storytelling, of actions on the battlefield, of these heroic of these people either accepting their fates or fighting their fates, almost like a Ragnarok style situation, or that whole fatalism versus free will. So I did really try to spruce it up with a bunch of fluff. If it gets confusing, let me know. But so far, I'm hoping things are making sense to you. Each journey or turn, you may assert your will twice over the course of the acts or turn options available to you. You may use the will of both your units, or one unit and one heroic action. You may also choose not to enact your will and accept what awaits you on the journey. When your discard pile reaches 22 cards, or 42% of the deck, threshold is reached and your fate is reset for better or worse. At the end of the turn in which you reach threshold, thoroughly shuffle the discard pile back into the deck and offer it to be cut by the player to your right as play continues left around the table. Banished cards are not reshuffled during the current cycle. Journeys and acts. Every player's turn, or journey, consists of several parts. These parts are called acts. Acts may be taken in any order unless otherwise specified. By default, squares are used to refer to map distances, but these may optionally be replaced with hexes. The prelude. I mean, if any of you play Magic or something, turn phases, that kind of a thing. This is the start of the turn. Usually neither fates nor wills occur, and is usually meant for the activation or cessation of certain conditions. The main act. This is the bulk of the hero's journey. Hey, Daniel! Welcome back. Good to see you. This is the bulk of the hero's journey. The following actions may normally be taken. Any extra actions will be allowed and specified by their respective abilities. Movement. If you are not adjacent to an enemy, you may move up to your unit's speed. You may choose to tempt fate for additional movement this act. Any bonus movement must be used even if the journey's full allowance wasn't. This bonus cannot be used to charge or move into an attack, but it can be used to move into melee range. Alright, have a good night, Bro Applier. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. As you do this, remember, you tempt fate. So, you have your deck, and you declare that your unit is going to make a move. Here's your fate. You tempt fate. A joker. Well, for playing, we set that to the side. Ace. Alright, if it is a matching face card or ace, you get 2 extra squares, and you may add 1 to the next journey's movement fate draw result. So, this was a rare pull. And so, if this matches, so if my unit is red, and I pulled a red ace, not only do I get the 2 extra squares, I also get to add 1 more square of movement on my next journey's movement, because I built up some momentum. However, if my unit was black and not red, I would just get the 2 extra squares. XCAT, the hit dice of a rogue are D8s. If you're adjacent to an enemy, you may choose one of the following actions. You may reposition your unit by shifting it 1 square around the enemy, while still staying in contact with it. You cannot use diagonals to cut corners around an enemy. You may disengage your unit from the enemy. This allows you to break contact without suffering a reprisal. Tempt fate, so it's prompting you, tempt fate, to see how the movement goes. You may neither attack nor defend on the journey in which you disengage. So, random pull, we tempt fate. So here is a number card, N. Move up to your unit's speed away from the enemy and deplete one combat capability from your unit. There's a rider. If this was a red unit, if you see where it says matching here, you may take a hit, but you also get to increase your defense by 1 until the next prelude. Otherwise, if it was a black unit, then you would move your speed away, but they would get to tag you on your way out. You may choose to engage in attack movement if you're not adjacent to an enemy. You may choose one of the following options. Charge into combat. Actually, I got, you can reposition or you can disengage. Charge into combat. You must choose an enemy at least 2 straight squares away within your line of sight, but no more than your unit's unmodified speed. Because remember, you could float a +1 from a card pull. You must end your charge in the adjacent square closest to the enemy. You may charge through difficult terrain if you have enough movement. Tempt fate and see how the movement is modified. So let's say that we have a black unit this time, and let's tempt fate. Pretend that the middle of the deck is going to be the top card. Alright, here we go. It's a number card, so we would resolve the attack normally. However, it's matching, and the matching bonus is add +1 to either number, add +1 to either the number or the face, but choose either +1 draw result or defense for an ace. So we get this extra rider on our attack because we matched. Quick question, is gaining a new class related power every 3rd level too frequent, assuming abilities are balanced? That's difficult to answer, XCat, because if you look in the player's handbook, each class will give the character a class ability at different levels that aren't always regular. And then you get your archetype traits also at different levels. Now, within the same class, for example, monks, get all your monk stuff at a normal rate. Way of Shadow Monk gets archetype Way of Shadow features on the same levels that the Elemental Monk gets elemental features. But a monk's abilities are different and differently spaced out than a fighter's and then a wizard's. A wizard gets like 2 abilities because everything else is its spells and its school. So it really depends, XCat. That may not necessarily be the answer you're looking for, but if you're going to make a class, try and base it around one of the 12 that are in the player's handbook for terms of pacing or scale of the abilities. You may also move and attack. You may move up to half, rounded down, of your speed and resolve an attack normally. You may move through difficult terrain if you have enough squares. This movement may occur after the attack if no longer adjacent to an enemy. Hey, Becky! Well, I'm glad. I've tried not to have this be too complex for this house rule system of conducting a mass combat. And as you can see, I mean, mine's a little bit longer because I have the variables depending on when you tempt fate. What did you pull from your deck, and how does that adjust what you're doing? And the psychology to that is, you're an accomplished commander, But things happen, right? You say, yes, make a flanking maneuver. It's strategically the best thing. And in fact, that flank might have occurred on very dry, firm ground, and you'll have a bonus that you weren't expecting. Or something could have happened that distracted your troops that you couldn't account for ultimately. And so your tactic went off. It just could have been better. Okay. So you have movement options. I don't know if if you want me to go through each of them, I can do so for your contemplation, for you to play out in your head. Otherwise, I don't mind going over. Hey, Plunder Loot, good to see you. It's me, a Plunder Loot. Woohoo! Cheers to you. Oh, gotcha, XCat. So with this mass combat, you can move your troops, you can attack. You have standard actions, because I did try to mimic the course of a normal turn for a player. Something that you'd be used to, something that you're in the rhythm. The options have changed, if only slightly. But I still want the rhythm to be there, so everyone going around the table can think ahead. I'll have one of those hold the soda and add the whiskey. Well, it's not really a soda, Plunder Loot. It's some beer. I think you would. It's it's very good stuff, Blunderloot. Yes. Ahem. This is... Oh, I'm sorry, not a stout, a porter. A blend of delicately smoked porter and tart cherry creek. Kriek. Manta Rock, that's a face. Combat is broken up into attack actions and defense actions. Each of these actions are resolved by opposing tempt fate draws between your unit and the enemy. In other words, you get to play war. Right? You get to play war with the people at your table that you're attacking or you're defending against. I really wanted to try and make this fun and thematic. Compare numerical fate values of the cards, apply any will modifiers, and assign combat depletion based on the difference between the winner and the loser. Attack bonuses only apply to your unit as an attacker. Defensive bonuses do the same for defending. I don't know offhand, Pneumonica. I wish I could tell you off the top of my head. But this is a good learning opportunity, is it not? Attackers may be damaged by defenders if the defense rate is higher. Ranged units cannot be damaged during defense unless the enemy they are attacking also has a ranged attack. Your unit, and if your unit's within range. What that means is, as a defender, you can still deal some damage to your attackers, right? I mean, listen to the background music. People are fighting with swords. You may be on the defensive in a sword fight, but you're still looking for opportunities to stick them with the pointy end. And what I want to make sure that I'm avoiding is a game of cat and mouse where people aren't being ground down in some way or tested, right? If you're going to commit your troops to a battlefield, something's going to happen. And so there's a possible risk of loss in any action you take. Therefore, take some kind of action. Be a bold leader. By the way, does 2d8 slashing plus 1d4 force sound okay for the magic greatsword damage? So a greatsword is normally 2d6, so instead of being... unless you're 2 to 12, you are 2 to 16. So that is higher than normal damage just on the blade. And then, so let's see. If we're talking about a normal greatsword, on 2d6, that would be 2.5. So that'd be 5 damage plus strength. On this sword, it would be 9 damage on the sword plus 2.5 force damage from the magic effect. So you'd be going from 11, 12, or you'd be going to 11 or 12 damage from 5 damage, not including strength. So you're adding an average of 6 to 7 damage per swing with the greatsword as opposed to a normal one. You don't hear background music. Oh, shoot. Let's try this instead. Sorry. You may instead choose to defend your unit. If you defend, you cannot attack, but you can move up to half your speed, as long as you aren't in melee combat with an enemy. You may not disengage. When you defend, get +3 defense to your unit. If you beat an enemy while defending, no matter by how much, you deplete its CC by 1. Combat capability. Enemies must still disengage from your unit even while in defense or suffer reprisal. Reprisal is an attack of opportunity. Well, 3 to 20. If you want consistent big numbers, then just tack a +X thing on there. Yes, yeah, do you want consistency or variability? And also, don't forget, XCAT, when you're playtesting this, you should presume that if this is a strength-based weapon, the person who's wielding it is going to wield it to the best of its ability. And so, add an extra +5 strength, because that's the natural cap. That's the natural modifier cap. So it'll really be 5 plus 2d8 slashing plus 1d4 force. Alright, reprisal. Attack of opportunity. Reprisals incurred when one unit willingly passes through or out of an enemy's melee range without disengaging or shifting. Tempt fate to see the result of the reprisal. So, remember, your fate deck, you had it shuffled, you tempt fate, you draw the top card. Aha, ooh, we have the other ace. Well, in this case, as the number result, and reduce their speed by 1. So not only as a reprisal do you get to tag them on their way out for 1 combat capability, you would also reduce their speed by 1. If this was the matching color, the ace, if the ace was the matching color to the unit that was making this attack, you can add +1 to either result. So you could either deal 2 damage or lower their speed by 2, still abiding by the minimum. Combat capability measures how steadfast your unit is in the face of combat. Depletion represents your unit's numbers waning, strength draining away, or even moral resolve crumbling. It is an abstract term in measurement. There are no inherent bonuses for having full CC. Unless otherwise stated, a unit may have no more CC than that which it started. As battle is played out and a unit succumbs to fatigue, intense attrition, or falls into traps, it will lose CC. When a unit is at or below half its CC, it is being tested. Tested units deplete 1 more CC anytime CC would normally be depleted. This loss cannot be reduced or prevented, but it may be restored. Tested units may always add 1 square of movement instead of a tempt fate. Tested units may ignore the number fate results on a disengage, but must still tempt fate to take the action. Routing occurs if a tested unit depletes over half, rounded down, of its remaining CC in combat. A routed unit is removed from the map as it has been crushed underfoot, swallowed up by a ravine, blown into oblivion, or simply ran away. To prevent a unit from being routed, its leader may tempt fate. Draw 1 card for each remaining unit under the hero's control, including 1 for the hero. A hero still controlling 2 units would draw 3 cards, for example. Add the total of the cards and compare it to the same number of cards the enemy player draws. If the hero wins, the unit restores 1 CC and gains +1 defense until the next prelude. If the enemy total is higher, remove the hero's unit from the map. It will not produce a card should another rout occur. Special actions. Every journey, each unit may take 1 action. This action may be a heroic engagement action, a heroic aid action, or its own special unit special action. USA, USA. Heroic engagement actions represent general orders on the battlefield. It may be used on any of the hero's units still on the battlefield regardless of position, line of sight, line of effect, or distance from other units or enemies. The same heroic engagement action may not be used twice in a row. Oh, and also remember, too, XCat, if you crit, you get double weapon dice. Heroic engagement actions. You may tempt fate in the following ways to help guide or support your own units. You may not use the same action 2 journeys in a row. For results, add the fate's worth to the relevant abilities modifier. This is where you as an individual character come into play now, right? Because Velma Dilly Dilly is going to lead her unit in a different fashion than, Suave Face McTiefling, who's probably going to rely on intelligence and charisma over Velma Dilly Dilly's strength, dexterity, or constitution. And so because you are the hero, you are the leader of your unit, this is where your stat sheet comes into play. This is where you have an effect on how you're leading this group. So you tempt fate. Let's say that Velma wants to tempt fate and use this heroic engagement action to give an order or a command to one of her units. She tempts fate. 4. 4 plus a 3 is 7. In this case, she wasn't able to rouse the attention or the affection of her troops. Because if you got a 10 plus, you would get +1 to your next combat fate. If you get a 15 plus, think of these like skill checks. If you get a 15, you get +2. You get 20, add 2 to your next combat fate, or push engaged enemy units 1 square. And if it matches, so if she was trying to give this action to a black unit, your next mental fate increases by 2. Why mental? Because the mental will feed into the physical will feed into the mental. You give strong bolstering support, and on the next turn, especially because you can't repeat the same command twice in a row. If you do a strength, then one of your next mental stats, right, is gonna be increased. If you come down to here to charisma, your next physical fate increases by 2 instead. Oh snap! The flannel pug. Welcome. It's good to have you in here. I'd say cheers, but I already had 1 cup, and I'm drawing it there. Because, my dear flannel pug, it's Friday, and take a look at this. This is some yummy stuff, and I wanted to give you all a cheer of appreciation. Now, let's say that Velma Dilly Dilly wanted to use a constitution-based activity. And instead she tempts fate. Remember, fate is your deck. And you tempt fate. And she gets, in this case, a 2. So she's not going to... she won't get the -1 combat capability depletion until next prelude. So the endure action. Bolstering his strength, enduring his con. But if that were higher... Here. There we go. This is an 11... And if we add in Velma's stat here of 2, all right, so that'd be a 13. So she'd still be able to reduce 1 incoming damage to a minimum of 1. And that'll reset at the next prelude. If she got higher, and by the way, that's how this scales, right? If you are, you could draw up as a lower level character in this system, and it's an epic feat. You come in at level 12, level 16 even, and your ability scores are higher, you are going to naturally be a more capable general or leader and have a lot more of these options that are available to you. Right? You get a 15. This is just a -1, not even a minimum. So if only 1 was incoming to you, you would reduce it and take nothing. Or on a 20 plus, you are a super swole barbarian leader, and this is where Krusk would really help, because Krusk is used to taking damage and shrugging off blows. -2 CC depletion, but a minimum 1. And in fact, if it matches, which is a 50% chance to your unit, gain 1 combat capability until the next prelude. So you can actually even bolster yourself, like recover a little bit. Dexterity. Fight or flight. Win any tied fates this journey and gain 1 square of movement to the next movement type you take. Win any ties this journey and make an extra attack at -2 attack or shift up to 3 squares around an enemy. Okay, would it be broken if I just dealt force damage in place of slashing? Because I know basically nothing has any defenses against force damage, so I don't know if that's broken. I mean, if you're hitting a goblin with a force sword or a regular sword, it's still going to take the damage. It's going to take all of the normal damage anyway. That is a good consideration, King. So, physical stats. Are you a physical character? You can lead in a physical fashion, if you wish. Are you a mental character? Cuckoo. You can use a stratagem. Flip and keep your next fate revealed. So, you would flip your card, and you could set it to the side because you're planning for later. Flip and keep your next fate revealed. If you get a 15, you could take the prior result, or you may discard the card. So, if you're especially intelligent, and you don't like that next card, get rid of it. Thin your deck. 20 plus, either prior or shuffle your discard pile into your fate deck and reveal the top card. And if it matches, you may switch the color of one tempt fate draw next journey. Wisdom. Mending. Restore 1 CC. 1 combat capability. Heal 1 hit point, effectively. Restore 2. Prior, but you may split restoration between your unit or any adjacent one. And if it matches, restore 1 CC to any of your other units next prelude. Charisma. Subtract 1 from any fate before your next prelude. Any fate means you can help out someone across the table from you, or you can interfere with my fate draw as the DM. Prior or add 1 fate to anything. So instead of just subtracting, you can add and give someone an edge that way. Either prior or immediately give another unit up to 6 squares away another unmodified attack or another movement with which it can end adjacent to an enemy. Or if it matches, your next physical fate increases by 2. So you can cycle back and forth between strength and charisma. Strength and charisma. A hero may use a heroic aid action, an engagement action or an aid action. You may tempt fate in the following ways to help guide or support allied units within 5 squares of your heroic unit. You may use the same aid action in subsequent journeys, but the same unit cannot receive the same aid twice in a row and may not be aided by more than 1 hero. For results, add the fate's worth to the relevant skills modifier on your character sheet and compare the results. These aid actions are dependent on battlefield awareness, context, and the scope of each skill presented in 5th ed. To keep the system simple, skill manipulation, magic spells, items, feats, etc. should be disallowed unless specific context or reason for it to work is given. The hero may petition the DM or GM to use a relevant skill to aid a situation in a battle. If the skill is deemed relevant, the aiding hero may tempt fate, adding the result of the fate to the skill modifier. 10. A minor bonus. Something broad like +1 movement, +1 bonus to combat capability recovery, but not recovery itself. But if you receive healing, you would heal 1 more. A moderate bonus. 2 movement, 1 straight up recovery, or a +1 advantage on something specific. Significant. An increase in the items before or the chance for physical card manipulation such as Fate Revelation, or the ability to switch cards when a certain condition is met. Or a major bonus. Prior, perhaps 2 smaller ones combined, or more universal physical fate manipulation. Or 30, because look, you can draw up to a 14, and your skills can obviously go higher. It scales. And again, I wanted to make sure you could draw on your power as a PC in this fight. What are you good at? What skills are you bringing to this combat? And how can I help you think creatively and imaginatively about whatever is happening? Right? This is still storytelling. This isn't just, an accounting game going back and forth, kind of like a Magic the Gathering, where you use only the numbers that are ahead of you. A hero may choose to leave the current unit and enter another under his or her control before or after using a heroic aid action. To do this, the current unengaged heroic unit sacrifices a number of squares to the hero to allow it to move. An engaged unit may disengage normally and have it move at least 1 square away, giving the rest to the hero to avoid a reprisal, or take a reprisal itself and leave its former unit be. So, a hero on its own receives some generic stats. You have 12 combat capability. The character has a move of 5. Your highest score determines the bonus that you would carry. If your strength or int, +1 attack. Con or charisma, -1 depletion. Dex or wisdom, +1 defense. If ability scores are tied, you may choose which bonus applies for the duration of the cycle. This is so you can stand alone against a horde. Remember, you're the big damn hero, right? If you want to stand as Krusk the Barbarian, you can do that with these stats. And you can fight and take these actions yourself. Maybe even drawing off an enemy that says, "Oh, we're gonna squish Krusk the Barbarian." Well, Krusk the Barbarian here, with his with presumably Constitution being high, if not Strength, but let's say Con, harder to kill. You know, you take a bunch of defensive actions and maybe delay, you might be able to weather several hits and not really have anything happen to you, despite thematically, 50 kobolds are poking you with sharp sticks. Instead of either of the above, a unit may instead to use its own USA or its own unit special action. These actions may be repeated every journey. A hero may substitute an additional HEA or HAA for every odd number of units controlled starting at 5. For example, a hero controlling 4 units gets either up to 4 USAs or 3 USAs and 1 HEA. For 5 units, the hero may use up to any combination of 0 to 2, 0 to 5. I know we're going to get into the weeds, and I don't want your eyes to roll back and go, why am I watching this guy? Blah. But I wanted to introduce the idea to you, to see, I want to gauge your thoughts. And I might even throw this up on our Discord if you want to play around with it and have some fun. Now, what's not in here are my own documents that I printed for sample monsters or groups. Because unlike the Unearthed Arcana, I don't really make the monsters around what the challenge rating in the monster manual is. If you think that it's thematic to have a bunch of orcs on the battlefield, then I want you to choose the generic role of the orcs. But of course, the orcs could be the hobgoblins. I want you to empower yourself with your story. And so what you would do is you would find a broad sort of line of effects. And then you would slot in cosmetically the type of monster or the type of enemy that you would want them to be. That's fine, Victor. Hey, Rin, good to see you. I'm glad you like it, Volvo. I know that there's a lot of verbiage, there's a lot of terms, and the way that it's laid out, there's a lot more rules with the set that I put forward than with a very straightforward. You make your units out of the monster manual and you roll a d20 and there you go. I don't want to poo-poo that, because that is a way that you could run a mass combat. So when I read that, I said, we could run that, but I'm not feeling it, and I think the math might get wonky. And especially because at the point in the campaign where I was going to use this system, because I did about a year ago, it wouldn't make sense to have just a bunch of orcs, because I needed a convenient challenge rating. I wanted something that would allow me storytelling flexibility to empower my characters in my story, and to recognize that my players have options to take strategic choices themselves. So this version is more complex than the Unearthed Arcana version. I would also like to think that it is more flavorful, and with its verbiage, with the fact that you have with the fates and wills that you're testing, and the way that you can you can run a broad unit-to-unit combat, or you could bust out your hero to be the big damn hero, or to play to your hero's strengths that just aren't charisma when it comes down to it. So by no means is the above a finished product. In fact, I may work on this as a project to actually polish it up and make it available through certain platforms. But I did want to... So all the way back to chainmail for a battle at least. You know, I hadn't played chainmail, but it does get back into having similar options daily. Where I wanted to respect my players to make decisions. I wanted to empower their characters. And I wanted them to also... I wanted them also to have this sense of variability, but you don't have to rely on dice or whatnot. In fact, for this system, all you need is your character sheet and a deck of cards. If you're a player. If you're the DM, you actually pilot 2 decks of cards. And for people, I mean, if you card count, you might be able to benefit, although your deck shuffles after reaching a 42% threshold. I know that sounds very weirdly specific. It was X amount, it was 24 cards. Something along those lines, 22 cards. So there is still randomness and a variable. But with the above, you still get your action. Your action isn't denied to you. You are still making asserted policy on the battlefield. What it can measure is your policy more effective in that circumstance, as the random encounter may be. Victor says, my friend Ray says he wants to learn D&D. Looks like I'm going to be back to DMing duties. Yeah, Victor, I hope that you can that you get your friend on board. It's an awesome hobby. I know I don't need to tell you that. And if your friend also needs any more advice, you know that you could have Ray visit us on our Discord. But if a system like this does tickle your fancy, then I'm happy, number one, that I was able to give you something to think about. Heck, did I encourage you to perhaps even come up with your own system? To refine the Unearthed Arcana? Or heck, tell me, Matt, you're crazy, there's too many terms, I don't want to play with a deck of cards and all this in D&D. You know, I just want to roll dice. And you know what? In that case, Fates and Wills is not the system to go. I can say, though, that through the playtest we had at the tabletop, it did go rather well, and my reflection, or my feedback from my players was that they did enjoy it. It was a little awkward at first, because again, we're getting used to moves and whatnot. But a lot of the players got into a really good groove, and we were able to go around the table, and they'd say, okay, I'm going to take this action, test my fate. Okay, Matt, I'm going to attack your monsters. All right, opposed. And then we play war with our cards, right? And then, you know, the difference between the two is battle is damage one way or the next. It was a ton of fun, and I really enjoyed the challenge of creating it. So, something I can probably tickle is, for those of you who do subscribe to the channel, there's probably going to be content like this that's going to be in a more polished state that I may be offering to people who subscribe as a specific thank you. That's not a raffle. It is it's something that it's a show of appreciation to people who have supported the channel. And it means a lot that you all have, and it does keep me inventive and thinking and becoming inspired further and further. And while I made this before I met you all, I would feel happy and proud to polish up something like this and offer a rule supplement, offer, something to you as a thank you, because I do have through Twitch, I can email my subscribers and send you like a notification or something along those lines. So more details on that as I explore it and I get further to that point. But I do appreciate you all giving me a little bit of time to toot my own horn with this system as we compared and contrasted it to the mass combat rules that we had with the Unearthed Arcana version over here. Now I'm going to bust into these General Tso's chicken potato chips. Oh, XCat, I don't have it in front of me. I'll let you know. Just I'm sorry. I'll get that for you. Every time I talked with my guy who was doing the shipping, I keep forgetting him to I keep forgetting to have him bring that up. Does taste like chicken. I am getting kind of a generic Asian flavor blend. No, XCat, it's not going to be larger than $5. He mentioned it in passing when I was leaving the store, and I said, "Gotcha." But unfortunately, while I remembered it wasn't that much, it wasn't anything huge. Don't worry about it. You're good, XCat. I guess it would kind of taste like General Tso chicken. Well, it does, but because it's not, maybe just because it doesn't have it's hot, or it doesn't have the gravy or the vegetables with it, it's a partial, like, I would call these Oriental potato chips, or something along those lines. But for sure, the prime rib and horseradish, that tasted exactly like that. Did you back Matt Colville's Strongholds and Followers? I haven't heard of that. I don't know what that is, Daily. I mean, I'd ask what that's about, but it sounds pretty straightforward. A supplemental book about those two concepts and weaving them into your game. Okay. I wasn't aware of it. I don't know Matt Colville. I mean, not personally, but I'm not aware of him. I'm interested to see how something like what we've been talking about that would add to a campaign. Ah. I'm sorry that I don't have that material, Daily, that I could dovetail into what we're talking about. I guess I do live a sheltered life. I've been living in my own little hermit cave of pardon, of my own homebrew stuff and with the store and everything. I'm not familiar with a lot of these big names. I wish I had it. I'd look at it and report back. Oh, it's not even out yet. Gotcha. No, you're fine, Diadems. It's actually kind of interesting because here I am. You know, I'm supposed to be a broadcaster of D&D content, and you all are talking about people and trends and documents and channels and I'm like, okay, I get it. I haven't heard of it, and that's not offensive, but but you know what? What that means is I get the opportunity to learn from you all. And I enjoy that reciprocity because I don't want to ever be a know-it-all. I don't want to be a Mr. Perfect of lore and, you know, conceited, oh, well, of course, Matt Colville, no, this nothing along those lines. If I'm always learning, that's a way to also help keep me humble and to help keep me open-minded, because there could always be something more in the world to understand. XCat, if I saw a video of this system in action during a session, I learned a lot better. Yeah, XCat, that might even be something fun to record and put up on YouTube. Oh, it'll come out in a couple weeks, Volvo? Aha. It'd be interesting to see it work about making it work with 3.5, because I don't have any 5th edition stuff. Given the name of that book, Diadems, I would be surprised that there's not already a supplement that gets into that stuff. I could have sworn it would have been in one of the Splat books that talks about upkeep costs, travel, crafting. In fact, I know that you can get followers in 3rd edition. Now it may be spread out over a couple books. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Sometime in October at the latest, the physical copies, or sometimes early next year. I'd not be surprised if he already put something in for conversion. That is what he is updating. Okay. You're fine, Volvo.